Yes, I'm seeing something in 2026 happening. And on the 4th of July of 2026 will be the 250th anniversary of the United States. And I've been told by my Venusian friends that the first thing I have to preface is that the Earth, like Venus and other planets, exists at multidimensional levels. So I have a friend, Omnek Onek, who came from the higher spiritual dimensions. Then Venus also exists on the material plane in the third and fourth dimension. So when I talk about the fourth dimension, this is mastery over time. On the physical plane, the society in Venus is underground, and that her vibration was just so fast, so high and fast that it wasn't going to be captured on film.
Hi, this is Akanksshaa. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you resonate with me, please like, comment, and share. Welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and a Talk Show. On this show, we talk about deep spiritual and mystical experiences of people which we normally shy away talking about. We are more than our physical body, we are spiritual beings on a human journey, and we discuss how a soul exists on multiple dimensions. We discuss science, technology, and spirituality point of views and perspectives on this show. Our purpose is to open our minds to limitless possibilities and our hearts to love and shine the light within bright. Our guest today is Dr. Raymond Keller. He is also known as Cosmic Ray. He's a veteran and retired history professor, and he's an international award-winning author of the Venus Rising series of books. His books explored many facets of the conditions and life on Venus in many dimensions from a perspective of conspiracies, history, politics, governance, theosophy, ufology, current events, and especially space research. Dr. Keller, that is Ray, has lived and worked in 44 different countries and has been writing about UFOs, mysteries of the planet, Venus, and flying saucers and paranormal activities since 1967. He was the founder and director of Outer Space International Research and Investigation Society. I had a very interesting conversation with Ray, and during my conversations with Ray about Venus, he made an astonishing revelation about a mass disclosure that is going to happen in July 2026. We discussed about his journey. He started from science, from researching UFOs and ufology, then how he moved into spirituality, how he met ascended masters from Venus, how we as Earth are going to ascend into higher vibration and become 602nd planet in the Sirius Confederation. How he physically traveled to Venus. Yes, you heard it right, not astrally, but he physically visited planet Venus. And what did he do? How was his space shuttle? How was his encounter with hybrid beings? How he communicated with those beings? About the Venus civilization, how they travel across the solar system, and how he manifested his deepest desires with the power of intention and focus. A lot of different topics. And we actually had live channeling of a Venusian being through Ray on our podcast. Fascinating conversation and a long conversation. So I have divided this into two parts. So I hope you love this and give a lot of love to our brothers and sisters who are living across the planets or in our solar system and across all solar system. Hello, Ray. A very warm welcome to Multidimensional Soul Talk Show and a podcast. It's an honor and privilege to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Akanksshaa. Much appreciated that you have me as a guest on your special program.
You have written a lot of books on Venus and Venusian spirituality, politics, governance, and a lot about Venus, planet Venus in general. So I would like to know your journey. How did you start this? Were you always spiritually inclined, and why specifically Venus? Can you just tell us about it?
Yes. Well, my general involvement with ufology, the study of UFOs, began back in the 1960s. And at that time, I had an encounter with a scout troop of sighting a dish-shaped object, a flying saucer, over a railroad trestle in Walton Hills, Ohio. And this prompted myself and a friend to, as teenagers, to contact a local UFO group in the Cleveland area and to get involved in writing articles about UFOs and helping to put out a monthly newsletter. And we eventually began to publish a flying saucer magazine, the Flying Saucer Report, with a loan from the UFO group. And this brought me into contact with many ufologists. And then I began to understand some of the more esoteric meanings of UFOs and contact with extraterrestrials and ultradimensional beings after reading some of the books by the contactees, like George Adamski, Howard Menger, and so forth. And then my interest in Venus began with becoming a member of the Theosophical Society. And as you know, Helena Blavatsky, the co-founder of the society that established the international headquarters in Madras, she made 2 trips to India in an attempt to meet with the Ascended Masters. So her first trip in going up north to the Himalayas, she didn't make it. She had to turn back. But the second trip, she did make it, and she received a lot of light and knowledge from the higher ones, and began to write many things about esoteric knowledge and wisdom and so forth. When she went back to England in 1887, the first article that she wrote was History of a Planet, which was all about Venus. And so I'd been particularly interested, therefore, in the planet Venus and the contactees who had been to Venus. Now, Helena Blavatsky said that Venus is the most powerful, mysterious, and occult of all worlds. By occult, she doesn't mean something spooky, but what she means is that hidden knowledge that's being revealed for the benefit and enlightenment of humankind. And so that was in 1887. So in the period of time since then, and since my birth, and collecting all this information about UFOs and meeting so many people and information about Venus, I decided that it was time for an updated version. So her History of a Planet was about Venus. So my first book was Venus Rising, a concise history of the second planet. So it's over 300 pages. It's a big volume. It's fully illustrated. And I try to answer questions about Venus through many areas, through history, astronomy, astrology, metaphysical questions, uh, extraterrestrial contacts, and so forth. So the book has been very popular, and it's won many awards, as have all the subsequent books. Now there's 12 books in all, and there's 7 in the Venus Rising series, and then there's many that deal with paranormal phenomena and UFOs generally in certain areas, and portals, UFO portals, and so forth and so forth. So, I would encourage those who are interested to check out my books online, and I'm sure that they'll find them very, very enlightening.
Yeah. Wow, very interesting. Yeah, I have read about Helena Theosophical Society. When you mentioned that you started your research first with UFOs and probably from scientific curiosity, and then you moved on to the spiritual and enlightenment part of it and angle. So, how was that shift for you? What kind of practices did you do, and how did you get in touch with Venusians?
Well, I kept my mind open um, to the subject. I didn't close off my mind, and I considered all the all the possibilities and followed up on all opportunities. And it really opened up for me in 1987 with a trip to Mount Shasta in California. I'm a UFO group of my own that I organized in publishing the New Millennial Star was called OSIRIS, Outer Space International Research and Investigation Society. And we printed 7,500 copies every month for over 200 consecutive months. And we came to having 14 chapters worldwide. And one of the chapters in Salt Lake City invited me to come up there and to speak to the group. So I was living outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, in Rio Rancho. And I went up there and I met with Clayton Parker, a gentleman who was 87 years old. And he was teaching those in the group how to do psychometry and to look at ancient texts and documents and to interpret them through various methods of psychometry. And then he said to our group, he offered us to go meet an ascended master. So I was open to it, and we all agreed, yeah, we'll follow you. Where do you want? We'll go with you. And so he organized his trip to Mount Shasta. And there were 8 of us in the UFO group. And we went with him. And we met a lot of people along the way, people that were that I would later learn have intimate connections with Venus. When we got there, he said, we're going to stay here at the base of this mountain. He was 87 years old, so he was a little too old to be going up this trail. But he said, follow that trail all the way to the top of the mountain, and you'll have an encounter. And so, yeah, we started climbing up and following the trail. We got above the tree line to an outcropping of rocks, and there was a spring of water coming out from the rocks. Later on, I learned that it was called Panther Meadow. And all of a sudden, there was a ray of golden light that was shimmering light coming down directly above us. And we kind of parted in the middle around the light because there was an image forming, and then this like a teenage girl just consolidated her appearance in the light, in the middle of the light. She
Wow.
was wearing a white jumpsuit with golden braid on the cuffs and the collar. And she told us, "Do not be afraid. I'm Lady Ankara, and I'm here to answer your questions about flying saucers." So we were so we were just taken so much aback by the whole thing. And then she said that we were standing in a bilocation signal emanating from a planet called Balaton, which was a super Earth in the Sirius star sector. And and she, she we asked her questions about Balaton, and she said that it was about 3 times the size of the Earth, and that unlike the Earth, which is mostly salt water, that their planet was mostly fresh water, and that the indigenous species of Balaton were these mantid beings, like a praying mantis, and they opened and closed the stargates, and that it was a matriarchal society like on Venus, and that the women communicated with the mantids by putting their left hand on the heads of the mantids, and then they would ask anything and get the answers from anywhere in the galaxy. And she said if we looked up and down the side of the mountain, we'd be able to see 5 to 15-foot mantids going up and down the mountain, and we did. And said, "How is that possible?" And she said, "Well, you're simultaneously, when you're in a bilocation signal, you're simultaneously in 2 places at the same time. You're at Mount Shasta and you're on this planet at the same time. You're connected across time and space." And so it was so amazing. And then after 3 hours of talking to us and answering questions about flying saucers, about time and space and so forth, and all the mysteries, she said, "It's time for me to go because the portal is closing." And so Kay Studstrup asked her if she could take a picture of a Lady Ankara with the group. So she said, "Okay, yeah, no problem. You could do that." So we all gathered around her, and Kay snapped a picture. And then then she disappeared and left in the same way that she came. And then the golden light just drew itself up in like a solid ray lifting off the ground. And and so then we made our way back down the mountain to meet Clayton and tell him all about it. And he said, "Do you know who that was?" And he said it was his boyhood friend. He said that was Annalise Guerin. She was the like a seer and a prophetess, a Mormon prophetess. She grew up in American Falls. She was born in American Falls, Idaho, on the 7th month, the 7th day, and the 7th hour in 1899. And he was born in a year later in 1900. And she wrote 9 books about how you can get into heaven through the back door, is what she explained. And she was taken up in 1952. She was taken up into the heavens literally without ever dying. And then she's visited the earth on many occasions. She was taken to Venus. And she said that there's a Venusian colony and many other colonies from the Galactic Confederation that are in the Sirius star system. Sirius A, B, and C are incubators, celestial incubators for the creation of new worlds, and that there are 601 planetary members in 51 solar systems in the Confederation, and they all are setting up colonies in the Sirius system. And one day, when the Earth becomes the 602nd member, that we'll have colonies there as well.
Oh, wow. This sounds like a sci-fi movie, actually. Wow. I have so many questions for you. So when you
So
talk,
I know it sounds pretty incredible, but the thing about the picture that was taken, we hurried back to Salt Lake City because Clayton and Kay lived in Murray, Utah, a suburb, and there was a 1 hour photo mat there. This is before the digital age, of course. And so we went to the photo mat and then delivered the picture and waited around for it to be developed. When the picture developed, she wasn't anywhere in the picture, but we were all standing around and we were amazed. So we asked Clayton, well, how come she isn't there? How come she's not in the picture? And he said that her molecular structure was vibrating at a much higher rate of speed, that it can't even be captured on film because um, it's like the way he described it is like a fan. You know, when you turn an electric fan on and the blades are going around real fast, it's like you could see through them. That's what he explained. And that her vibration was just so fast, so high and fast, that it wasn't going to be captured on film. So that's the story of my first encounter that I knew that these were ascended and extraterrestrial beings. Before, I had suspected, and of course, being in ufology, I had met many who said they were extraterrestrials, but I didn't, I didn't know for sure until this experience. And I know that in the Bible, for example, in the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 2, it says, we should always be kind to one another. For know ye not that ye entertain angels unawares. So I know that they're there, and they've got our backs. They're watching us and protecting us, guardian angels and so forth. But I wasn't, fully cognizant of their existence beyond hearsay until this experience at Mount Shasta.
oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So when your friend mentioned about the ascended master, that Annalise, so she was also there along with Lady Inkara, or was it just the Lady Inkara who was there?
Oh yes, Lady Ankara was the name that was taken by her after her translation. So once she became a part of the Venusian angel force, she took the name Lady Ankara.
Okay, so she transitioned from Earth to Venus, and then she took that name. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
that's
because I
right.
was just trying to get the connection over there. Amazing. And you mentioned that she was vibrating at such a high frequency that she could not be photographed also. So I want to know, if we as common persons want to connect with higher beings, our vibration also has to be high in order to connect with them. Is that right? And uh, what did you do in terms of to prepare yourself physically, mentally, spiritually to get to that vibration where you can connect with the Venusians?
I believe that uh, what you seek for, you shall find, and knock and it shall be opened unto you. So I do believe that if our hearts and our minds are in sync and receptive to the unknown, not afraid of change, not afraid of extending ourselves, that these things will be made that available to us, available to the seekers. But it's an active kind of thing. I've spent my life reading and studying, and I do a lot of meditation. When I read something, a paragraph, uh, I'll write comments on the side in the book. I'll pause. I'll put the book down. I'll think about what I've read. Um, I'll ponder it and and dwell on these things. And I think it's more of an alignment, putting myself in an alignment with the higher powers, and actually putting myself um, into the experience. So you read a book like um, uh, Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, or Autobiography of a Yogi, or Paramahansa Yogananda or something. You meditate on those things and really think about and ponder what's being said, and put yourself into the picture in the meditation. That's a directive meditation versus just just a willy-nilly kind of thing, because you have a focus, and then you will have a greater understanding. And I have to tell you, like an experience that I had of um, back in the in the 1990s. I always wanted to go to Africa, and so I just started reading every book I could about Africa, and I read 200 books, and I kept notes, and I put on flashcards the title of the book, the author, and points that I learned from the book. And after the 200th book, I just had like a flash, like an epiphany in my mind, and it just like a spark or something, an explosion. And all of a sudden I knew that anything was possible. And I only had $300, but I had saved up enough money, so I had $300 left, but I had saved up like $1,500, and I went to travel agency, and I got through them a visa to go to Ghana. And then all of a sudden, these friends from Ghana, they offered me to stay at their family's home in outside of Accra, in McCarty Hill area. And so I immediately got this visa, and I went there, and I found a job right away. Well, when I got there, um, the the family that I was going to go to stay with wasn't there, but they had relatives, and so the people over there sent me to their house, and I stayed there. And then their son, Kwaku, took me all around Ghana and everything. I got a job teaching over there, and I stayed there for 2 years, um, among the different Akan peoples and so forth. And before I went, I had a picture of the Volta Dam in Ghana, and I put it on my mirror in my room. And every day I'd ask myself, what have I done to get there? And then within 6 months of doing that, I was standing on top of that very dam. Can you believe this? I mean, so it's this power of intention and focus that is so important. And meditation is very important, but it has to be directive. It has to have a purpose, and it does. It does work. And so that's the important lesson that I learned out of all this.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was just going to mention about autobiography of a yogi. I recently traveled to Mahavatar Babaji caves in Uttarakhand 15 days ago, and yeah, it was a miracle for me also. It was a strong intention because Babaji had called me, and he asked me to visit the caves, and I thought physically it's impossible because right now I have some knee issues, but I put in an intention and I gave my best, and yes, I could visit and come back, and it was a trek which I did in spite of my knee issues. So yes, intention and manifestation, they work wonders if you get guidance and direction from the masters. I do agree with
Oh, yeah, oh yes. So what you're doing is very important, and it's so nice to be able to talk to you. And it's I think it's more than coincidental that you contacted me originally just before or just at the same time that I received this invitation to go to the Hindu Society of North Carolina, to go to the big conference over there. And so a lot of the things that I learned there were, it's very helpful. Made a lot of contacts there, and now I'm talking to you, and they put me on an interview also there for a television show, and I think it's also broadcast in India. There was a room set aside there in the hall, and they interviewed me for half an hour to talk about Venus and everything. And the book was really well received over there, and made lots of new friends, and even got an invitation to go to India. So I hope that when I do get there, which I'm sure I will, that I meet you over there.
Oh, yes, definitely. You're more than welcome to visit here. So, since you talked about Hindu spiritual society inviting you right now in North Carolina, can you draw some similarities and differences between Hindu spirituality and Venusian spirituality?
Well, in a way, they're very similar. You know that there's various rites and initiations and so forth, but these are only these are only representative of higher spiritual truth. And this is the way with the Venusians, is that they respect all spiritual traditions, um, rituals, and so forth, because in and of themselves, they're only representative of higher spiritual personages and spiritual truths. So this is the fundamental teachings. For example, in the Upanishads, and this is also the second object of theosophy, is that we learn from comparative religion and from the acquisition of knowledge in all sciences and all fields of research uh, and endeavor. In that sense, that just truth is the highest religion, and that's true of Hinduism as it is in the uh, West, as it is for the Venusian.
Right. Yeah. And when you talked about us not being a coincidence, actually, I call that as a synchronicity. So essentially, it's a big synchronicity that we've got together. Yeah.
Oh
So
yes, and our dear friend Anya.
yeah.
That's great that you're working with her.
Yeah, definitely. She connected me to you, and yes, these are like synchronicities happening one after other. So I'm
Oh,
happy. So coming back to your Venus, you talked about your first encounter, but I am now more curious to know about your next encounters. And I remember you had mentioned that you actually traveled to Venus physically. So, what kind of spacecraft was it? Did you have to wear a space suit or something? How did that happen? Can you just talk about that?
oh yes. Well, the first thing I have to preface is that the Earth, like Venus and other planets, exists at multidimensional levels. So I have a friend, Omnek Onek, who came from the higher spiritual dimensions and came to the Earth. And I think Anya's probably told you about Omnek's
Yes.
encounter. So I work closely with Omnek as well. Then Venus also exists on the material plane in the third and fourth dimension. So when I talk about the fourth dimension, this is mastery over time. On the physical plane, the society in Venus is underground. The civilization is underground. And what I learned is that long ago in remote times, like 25 million years ago, in around a star that we call Tau Ceti, there's a planet known as Norca. And these are humanoids that live there very much like ourselves. And their sun was expanding outward and encompassing the inner planets, getting too close to the orbits of the inner planets and consuming the inner planets. And it was time for the people to leave. They had to find a new home. So they built a fleet of space arcs and traveled the distances of space from Norca as it was turning into a desert. Some were able to survive underground, and the others took off into space to seek for a new home until they came to our solar system, where they settled on Venus and Mars. And on Venus, when they landed there, it was very much like a paradisical world. And it wasn't until millions of years later that there were fundamental changes after the planet was bombarded by rogue asteroids and so forth. It significantly slowed the rotation of the planet, caused climatic and shifts in the weather patterns and everything else, um, put the planet in retrograde. So on Venus, that the sun comes up in the west and sets in the east, opposite of the Earth. The day is like the day is like 4 months long uh, by Earth time, by Earth standards, and then the night is like 4 months long. So it's and the gravity is 80% less. Although Venus is the same, when you get there, it's the same. It's it's the same size as the Earth in diameter. It's like only 200 miles in diameter less, but it has a very massive cloud cover. You can still see the sun though, but it's more diffused. The light is more diffused, and the clouds are multicolored, like in the background on the picture that you have there. That would be like a Venusian sky. And I mean, it's a very beautiful place, but when you get there, it's disorienting. The lesser gravity and so forth. And then there are a few structures on the surface, as even Omnek has pointed out, but most of society is built in played out lava tubes where they built the cities, and they have structures. The water comes from subterranean wells, they bring it up into these hydroponic towers, and then they grow the food that way. And but it's a very interesting civilization, and Venusians have been visiting the Earth since the beginning of recorded history. The way I met them was I was working in China in Wuxi at the international school in Wuxi, and when the semester uh, was over, I was visited by a Venusian friend, and she took me in an orb across China to the heading to the west over the Tibetan plateau to the Namso Lake, and we rendezvoused with other orbs, and then it was there that we boarded a mothership. It took 3 days to get to Venus, and you might think that that's a long time considering the advanced technology of the Venusians, but they're not allowed to engage the hyperdrive within the solar system. So they just use the gravitational assist of the moon, going around the moon to slingshot over to Venus in a rather traditional way. So it was a wonderful experience. I spent most of my time there in the Temple of History as the Venus historian, because when I went there, I had just completed my doctoral degree, in my mind intentionally to write a book about Venus and the history of Venusians. I guess they read my mind, and that's why I was there and so I did research, and I think if people read my books, and they will be enchanted by them, and they'll meet the Venusians and have a a wonderful experience and illumination from reading these books.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We will put all the links of all the books in the video description, and it's just fascinating. So, would you say you are the first person to physically visit Venus from Earth?
Oh, no, thousands have gone there,
Oh,
maybe more, because Venus is the closest inhabited planet to the Earth, the closest planet physically to the Earth. It's only 26 million miles away at its closest point. And you can read many accounts of people traveling to Venus. Dante in the in Il Paradiso, in the third and ninth cantos, he describes a trip to Venus and meeting various angels there. Paul in the Bible describes being caught up to the third heaven. Now, the third heaven was Venus, because in the ancient world, in the Western world, it was by the Roman cosmology that people were thinking about cosmic events and so forth. And the celestial bodies were gauged by their luminosity. So you have the sun and the moon as the first and second heavens, and then Venus was considered to be the third heaven. And so we know that from Virgil, for example, in the Aeneid, and we know that from Dante. Then Emanuel Swedenborg, a scientist and the founder of a New Age religion and Church of the New Jerusalem, he describes a visit to Venus and other planets. And I have to say something very important about a recent poll that was taken with the UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. That's the new term for UFOs. The disclosure hearings, the congressional hearings on June 25th of 2021. Well, a poll was taken about changing attitudes of Americans toward UFOs and life in outer space. So now 80% of Americans believe that some UFOs are coming here from other planets. 50% have seen what they perceive to be UFOs. And 15% of Americans say that they've had contact with extraterrestrial or ultradimensional beings at one level or another. Now, that's really significant because 15% of 300 million people, that's 45 million Americans. And so when the disclosure comes, the official disclosure, it's actually going to be more of an afterthought because so many people have already had the personal disclosure. Nay, I would rather say personal revelation that these beings exist. And we know, we know that the Earth itself, like Venus, exists at multidimensional levels. We have so many sightings of cryptids. We have stargates. We have portals. We have spectral phenomena like ghosts. We have all kinds of supernatural phenomena that take place all the time, indications that there is a reality that's generally unseen. But if we use our perception, if we open our third eye and we become psychically aware of these things, and become more attuned, we'll know it for a fact as well. Just look at dogs, for example. Dogs can see in ultraviolet, and some insects, and they can see things that we can't see, and generally, and sense things that we can't that we can't sense. So there's definitely something there that's unseen, and even physicists say that we're only aware of 10%.
Yeah.
We can only detect with our scientific instruments 10% of the universe. That means the other universe, part of the universe with the dark matter, is 90%. So imagine that we had a key to unlock that door and penetrate the dark matter and find out what's behind that veil, the veil of darkness. And then it's like the black holes. There's a black hole, astronomers say, at the center of every galaxy. And where that leads to is tunnels of light that connect to alternate universes and other parts of the universe. The Egyptians called these tunnels of light that connect the stars, they called it fluosi. And so it's for real. It's definitely for real, and more people than we can imagine have been to other planets in one way or another, either physically, spiritually, psychically. They've been there and done that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I myself have astrally traveled to higher realms along with my son. And so I am aware of this. You talked about personal disclosure, and Anya had talked about soft disclosure in the Hollywood movies. But when is it going to be a mass disclosure? I understand from Dolores Cannon's books and some literature that it is going to be in 2026. So, as soon as that, do you have any idea when is it going to be a big announcement that, okay, aliens exist and they are here to help humanity, kind of?
Yes, I'm seeing something in 2026 happening. As you know, the 4th of July is Independence Day of the United States. And on the 4th of July of 2026 will be the 250th anniversary of the United States. And I've been told by my Venusian friends that there's 3 areas of the United States where the extraterrestrials are going to make a grand appearance, similar to the harmonic convergence in the summer of 1987. And these will be at Mount Shasta in California, the Grand Tetons in Wyoming, and Sedona, Arizona, where there's definitely a vortex.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Sedona is a vortex.
So
I am aware.
yes, so if
And Mount
if
Shasta
if you
also.
if you're in the United States of America during that time, during July, early July of 2026, you could be part of the experience. It'll be just like the harmonic convergence, maybe even better.
Wow. Okay. So you talked about Venus and so many fascinating things, how you traveled in an orb. So did you have to wear any kind of special space suit, or how did you travel in the orb? And I understand that they are so advanced spiritually and technologically that they run the spaceship with just their minds or something like that. The technology
Oh,
is very advanced. So can you talk about that?
yes, the orbs are directed with the mind, and they're translucent. They're about 12 to 15 feet across. Depends. It's more like a personal conveyance, like we would have a car for ground travel, but within the atmosphere. Then they also have scout craft or ventlas, as they call them. These operate along the electromagnetic lines of force within a planet in the vicinity of a planet or a mothership. And then they have the motherships, which have a neutron pulse engine that can even carry them between star systems, between planets and star systems. And then there are also small surveillance drones that are kind of these little mini discs. They're maybe 6 to 12 inches across, and they deploy these to areas uh, to to actually sense the vibration, sense the mood of the people in the areas that they're going to send personnel, where they're going to land a craft to make sure that it's safe. So they have these small registered discs, and then they have those other types of craft. The ventlas are either 50 feet or 99 feet across. Um, the scout ships are the 50-foot ones, and then um, the other ventlas are the patrol craft. They're like 99 feet across. And one of them had actually crashed back in Aztec, New Mexico in 1948. So my second book, which is called Final Countdown Rockets to Venus, has all the details about that crash that never before revealed or seen, but documented evidence about the saucer crash in Aztec, New Mexico.
Oh, wow. Okay. And did you have to wear a spacesuit or you
And,
just.
no, no. There's a lot of misunderstanding. Yes, Venus on the surface is some areas are uninhabitable, but it's not so everywhere on the surface. There are still some structures. The atmosphere is still breathable at the lower levels. The diamagnetic properties of the Venusian atmosphere allow for the gases to be tiered and a layered effect. So the breathable gases are at the surface, oxygen and nitrogen. There's also water vapor in the Venusian atmosphere. There is a lot of misunderstanding about the temperature of Venus. For example, the many probes that have been there, they don't tell you that when they're measuring the heat, that it's electrical heat in the ionosphere and not on the surface. There's a lot of things that they just don't tell us about Venus, but we're gradually finding out. The Parker probe that went to the sun recently, it went around Venus to get a gravitational assist. And while it was on the dark side, the side facing away from the Earth, it photographed lights everywhere in the darkness. And I explained that long ago in my Venus books, The Vast Venus Conspiracy, and other books. as being luminous insects that swarm in the Venusian atmosphere, bioluminescent insects. And then recently from the United Kingdom, from the British Royal Astronomy, they announced that they had discovered phosphenes in the Venusian atmosphere, and these are only produced by life forms. It's all gradually coming out, and that's why I call NASA NASA. Never a straight answer. Whenever it comes to life on other planets and Venus and Mars and even the moon, they'll never tell you what's really going on.
Wow. So you mentioned that there is the gravity over there is only 80%. So were you like, I mean, not floating exactly, but how did you manage over there? When you said it was underground, how were the systems and the structures? Were they similar to Earth? Do they look like humans or do they look anything different?
They look largely like we do, but they have just as on the Earth, there's been interaction with other species over time, and so they are essentially hybrid species, and but they look like we do, and there's been a lot of interbreeding with humans, is because we're genetically compatible uh, with Venusians. Let me show you a picture in the Lady Columba book of a meeting on the space platform Leviathan, which rises from the far side of the moon and circles the moon. This is where they hold meetings of the Galactic Confederation. So
Oh,
you see
wow.
the many different kinds of beings there,
Right.
humanoids, as well as hybrid bee people, Ganesha beings, elephant beings, like aquatic beings, and so forth. And then there's various uh, hues or various mixes between these different kinds of species. So when we talk about the 601 planetary members, we're talking about beings humanoid, many of them, like the Pleiades and colonies in Sirius, Arcturans, but we're also talking about other kinds of beings, non humanoid, that inhabit our quadrant of the galaxy.
Wow. Okay. So when you say these are hybrid beings apart over and above humanoids, how did you communicate with them? Was it telepathic communication? How did you, because their language, everything will be different, right?
Oh, yes. So, communication between species among advanced beings is done by mental telepathy. This is done through imaging, d- like a tensor beam directly to the brain. So you don't have to know the language, but you understand the sense of it with the projection of the image. It's like you're seeing it in the frontal lobe, in the like over the third eye, and you see it and you know it and you understand what's going on through the imagery. This was explained by Sister Thedra. I have all of her original notes. She lived in Arizona at Sedona and Mount Shasta, and with Dr. George Hunt Williamson at the Temple of the Seven Rays down in Peru. And, Dr. Williamson was um, the associate with George Adamski in his original encounter with the Venusian in 1952, who took the footprints of the Venusian. I actually saw the footprints myself, the original cast, because one of the members of his Talonic Research Society, a scientist who's a friend of mine in Ohio, showed them to me. He's the one. He's the one that brought Adamski and Williamson together for the first time when they did a speech uh, at the Masonic Hall in Cleveland back in the early 1950s.
So when you went to Venus and you mentioned that they grow their food in hydroponic towers, so do they eat similar to us, all the vegetables? Are they vegetarians? Food and water and air? How is it like? Can you describe it?
Oh yes, largely vegetarians. They grow fruit and vegetables. They pump the water from underground aquifers up into these large cones, and then it comes down in tiers in the spirals, and then at each layer or each section along the spiral is where they grow different kinds of fruits and vegetables. So they bring soil and nutrients appropriate for each of the crops that they have there, and they bring them from a great biodiversity from many planets, as well as indigenous to Venus as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they travel across the solar system and get what they need and then they put it over there. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yes, that's right. In some of my books, I talk about bees, pomegranates, and other products that came to Earth from Venus, and then there's as well many plants and species that came from Earth originally that were brought to Venus. So they have a wide mixture, as well as from other planets, even other solar systems.
Wow. Okay. That's really fascinating. It's like, how we travel across the countries, they're actually traveling across the solar systems.
Yes.
Thank you for watching and listening in wherever you are in the world. As Ramdas says, that we all are just walking each other home. So thank you for co-creating the new earth along with me and our guests. And if you resonate with me, do subscribe to my channel and do let us know how you find our episodes. Thank you so much. Lots of love.